Hey, I'm Zach.
I'm Bobby.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brent.
And
You're watching Talking Mars on Now You Know.
Alright, so we are launch for Mars, episode 1.
Yes.
This is Talking Mars. Welcome.
Mars.
First, before we get started, I just want to announce to everyone, there are spoilers. We are going to be talking about the whole first episode, so if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It is amazing.
Yes,
Watch
watch
it
it
now.
now.
It's on
Nat Geo.
Nat Geo.
Yep.
Check it out.
And for those of you who are like me, that means National Geographic.
Right? I know, because why would they be... Like, this is a first for them, I think.
Our generation's all about, though, acronyms, right? Just shortening everything.
Yeah, it is. Nat Geo.
Okay, just... Who teared up? I teared up.
A little bit.
I teared up 3 times.
Really?
Three times.
Talking about
Maybe I'm dead inside. What parts?
When James Lovell had his little quote, I don't know if he was only in there once in the first episode. James Lovell, who, as we remember from Apollo mission, his quote was, "Is the risk worth it? It's worth it."
Yeah, toward the end.
Yeah, that's
really interesting.
That's moving.
Yeah, that was moving. And then a couple times, like when they landed and they were like, humanity, you know.
The footstep. The
Yeah.
first footsteps.
Right.
I was just like, wow, it just hit me.
Yeah.
How
How huge of a moment that
Yeah.
will be when it happens, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, I almost felt like it was the moment.
You know,
it's like you
and it's
imagine.
like in our lifetime, Jesse, Bob, and myself, like we haven't really had that moment, I don't think, in our generation
haven't.
yet, like the landing on the moon, Neil Armstrong,
true.
one small step for man,
Yeah.
one giant leap for mankind. We haven't had that moment yet.
I haven't either. It was before I was born.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so like that moment
So-
is like within our lifetime's grasp,
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Even in the movie The Martian, it's already kind of taken place. Like the landings you're already in that when
Right.
this movie starts, so you don't really get to feel that. You're just about his survival.
Right.
This movie, this TV show is about getting us there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few bones to pick
Okay.
with this.
Ooh,
of course
already.
you do.
Bones to pick.
Bone pick
Jesse
zone.
Talk.
Many bones. Okay, so the first thing is they sort of skipped the whole first. First of all, they've been
voyage?
launching way before.
Okay.
They've been launching all this stuff and landing it on Mars
Right.
in preparation.
Mhm.
Yep.
Robotically.
Each one of those would be an exciting moment. I mean,
Yep.
not that they needed to cover every single one of them, but they didn't they just sort of glossed over that, and then were like, "Oh, there's already a thing here." And
But
I feel like if you knew that going in, you'd feel more involved.
But I feel like they're going to reveal that as the episodes go on, and if we know about
Yeah.
all of it in advance, then because don't forget, this is a docudrama, so
True.
the
Right.
drama part has to be.
And I also
Yeah.
think they need to hook you with that first episode with some of the more
They do.
exciting stuff,
It's-
So I feel like we might go back a little bit in some of the
Right.
next episodes to go over some of that stuff.
And then for me, I think that they totally skipped over the voyage. They were like, we
yeah.
didn't see much of the liftoff.
I know it's like a 7-month voyage, and it's like, and we're here.
right. I mean,
Especially
it
when
would
they
have
talked
been-
about it so much before lifting off.
Right, like they didn't talk about if they were exercising during their trip or if they've just been sitting in their chairs.
Yeah, it's like,
for
what
the
do you
whole
do
time.
that 7 months while you're on your way there?
Right, and it seems like they would have been a little bit tighter after 7 months in like the same room,
They seem
basically.
pretty tight to me.
They seemed kind of tight, but they have these like, I don't know.
But
The chemistry isn't really there for me.
I don't feel like there's you'd have the same
yeah.
chemistry.
Because I feel like you were saying though, I think that they're definitely going to go back and show sort of the before, and that's what it seems like. To
There
me.
are lots of flashbacks. I mean, we are going
Yeah.
between 2016 and 2033 a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll jump a few years ahead, 2020, 2025.
Right, they might do that.
Maybe
They might
Right.
do that. My feeling is that they skipped a lot of that, and then for the landing, they skipped a lot of the landing. Now I know that
They did.
this
They
is-
skipped the whole land.
It's basically, it was almost from the perspective of the people on the ground.
Right.
Yeah, mission control.
And I know that is how the vast majority of humanity will be watching this.
I like that we didn't see the ship land on Mars because no one would have been able to see
No
it
one would
land
have
on
been
Mars.
able to have a
Although
camera.
maybe, if it had been at the correct site, maybe we would have had a camera there.
Right.
Right.
I thought it was really powerful when they showed the rover pull over that hill, and they showed the
They
ship for the
reveal
first
that.
time.
Right.
So yeah, that
They
was
did
kind
it
of.
right. That was pretty cool. I have to imagine though also part of it is budget. I mean, this is a Nat Geo docudrama.
Right,
I
that's
imagine
true.
they can't blow
They-
all their
they-
budget in the first episode
Yeah, they
showing
probably
a
had-
ship landing, you know
Yeah,
what I
some
mean?
meetings where they're like, okay, what can we do, what can't we do?
That's true.
Yeah, but I
and-
know what you mean. It would have been cool to see it, but
Yeah.
And then for me, also the whole like, our RCS thrusters aren't firing, like that's something that you're going to be testing hours, days before you get there.
They
and
could have
hours up
tested
to
it
that.
and then it failed.
Now, as someone like me who maybe doesn't know all the jargon, what exactly is what you just said?
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, what's going
For
on?
anyone else who might be interested in the
So-
show right now but doesn't actually know all the nomenclature. or
Right.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
I've done a lot of. I've always been sort of interested in space and stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
played like Kerbal Space
Absolutely.
Program and all that kind of stuff. So an RCS thruster is a reaction control system.
Okay.
Thruster. The way that works is, you have the main engines of the ship that fire, and that gives you most of your thrust.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to turn your ship in space, you can't just sort of like swivel, or you
Right.
can't just like
It's not just like a steering
you can't
wheel.
turn the steering wheel, right? And so what you have to do is actually, those are just little thrusters that go.
Okay.
You'll see
I
them
feel like
on-
I've seen that in a lot of
You've
movies
seen
and
that in a
stuff
lot
too.
of
Yeah,
yeah, there's
absolutely.
little-
Okay, gotcha.
little puffs of
Interesting.
stuff that it spits out.
to
So
know.
Were they in manual mode when? So like the computers failed. There's some kind of failure, and
Right.
then did it go to like was one of the astronauts actually controlling it?
I don't know.
See, they weren't very clear with
it. Was
it. It was
very
yeah.
unclear. They really skipped a lot of the science of that. I think
Yeah.
that
It almost feels like you humans be out of the loop at that point because the G's are so much that a lot of them could have been knocked
could
out.
have been passed.
Yeah,
out,
why
right.
was he not knocked out and they were? They were all kind of. He was kind of stationary too.
So I think the reason that happens is the seats that they're in are going to be specially designed.
Oh, like squeeze
to
your
help
legs
them.
and stuff.
Keep your body upright, the right
They
angle.
didn't
maybe.
seem to have too much of the squeezy legs kind of thing, which would have been smart. But it depends on how you're facing the G's, and I wasn't sure. It wasn't clear on how they were facing the G's, because if you're sitting, and you're very all supported, and imagine my gravity just gets turned up, so I'm sinking into the chair kind of thing. It's all about your blood and where it's going in your body.
You gotta
and
keep
stuff
it going
like
to your
that.
head.
And if you're hanging, I mean,
Right.
like Ben was.
I feel like if I was him, I would have just, instead of trying to climb back to the pod, which seemed fruitless, I would have climbed
Flipped
down.
yourself down.
Right.
Flipped yourself down.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't we all feel that? Like if
Yeah, no, I felt the
Ben had
same
just
way.
flipped himself.
Right.
You
I
think-
feel like he should have known. I mean, if you've gone through this, all the drills and stuff,
Right.
That
you'd have been like, okay, let me reassess this situation. I'm going to climb down and be where he
You
was
think this
at
is
the
the sort
end.
of situation too in preparation that would have come up too
Right.
as
Yeah.
like a
And
test
he
run,
felt-
Don't leave your chair.
Right.
Like,
or if you do have to, like, what's the emergency protocol if you find yourself in a
well, they
situation
ended
where you
up
can't
using
get
the
back?
emergency protocol anyway. I mean, he didn't do anything. He went down there and they were like, he failed.
Well, no, he fixed the board.
Oh, he
Yeah,
did
yeah.
fix
He
the board.
fixed that
Okay.
board.
And if it weren't for fixing that board, I think they would have been screwed.
And then they kind of
Okay.
hand waved over why it fixed itself and why they didn't crash.
No. So I think what it was is he fixed the board, and then they were getting a false reading,
Yeah.
and so everything was actually fine, but it was a false reading,
I
and
see.
that's why the woman down on
Okay.
the ground was like, "Use your eyes and ears. Use your eyes and ears." She was
Yeah.
telling him like everything's okay. That's why
I
you're
see.
seeing that everything's okay. It is okay.
Eyes and ears, yeah.
I see. Well,
Gotcha.
so I mean, what he should have done was just climb back down, laid on the floor,
Yeah.
and
Instead of
basically-
falling 30 feet.
Instead of
Should-
falling, because it's not like falling 30 feet or whatever. I mean,
It's 30 feet
it was
plus
30
all the
feet
extra
plus
force
the
behind
extra.
it.
It's
Yes.
like actually falling. I mean, he should
Now,
be dead.
should
yeah,
he
his
have?
neck should have.
Should he have
No.
revealed that he had broken rib?
Yes.
I mean, he has some sort of
That's-
internal
yeah,
bleeding
But I
going
mean,
on now.
but
I
it's
mean,
something-
is he being smart to keep the team moving forward, or do you think that they should stop and take like? Because
I think he should have.
I think that
I'm a little mad that he's not telling them.
right. I think that it's
Frustrating.
dumb. I think that you would tell your team, and that your team wouldn't. They're trained
To be a
astronauts.
best-
They're not gonna pussyfoot and be like, "Oh no, you're hurt." I mean, they're going to do the mission no matter what.
They're putting them more in danger
I mean-
by leading them to believe that he's going to be there the whole time.
Right, or that he's safe,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like he falls. He's gonna like fall off the rover, or
Yep.
he's gonna something.
Something's gonna
I mean, the first scene was him.
Of him being
being wheeled
carried
away.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with him though. Maybe it's his, that positive energy that he's given them that keeps them going forward. Whereas
Yeah.
if they're all worried about him with a broken rib, they might be like, "Oh,
he
our
does
leader
seem,
has
he
fallen."
seems a little screwed though, huh?
He
Right.
does. Yeah.
a little bit.
I mean, if he's got
He's
some-
spitting up blood.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
He's
How are
definitely
they gonna take
punctured
care
a
of
You
lung.
that?
shouldn't
Yeah.
be
You know.
waiting around for treatment.
No.
I mean, no matter what.
Especially when you don't have a time. Like they could have left. They had 3 days to stay at the ship.
3 days.
And they could have left in the rover whenever they wanted.
Right. I think
I mean,
that it probably took the
precious
rover
time.
a few days to get to them, but in the meantime,
Can I talk with the rover?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they started writing and shooting this probably a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
I think they probably weren't even thinking about autonomous driving when they started writing this.
That's true.
But
'Cause he had the remote.
in 2033, wouldn't the rover autonomously just drive to their location?
Well, it depends on how old the rover was.
Oh,
Because
the rover could have been
they might have
while.
sent it up
Yeah.
a while ago. That's
Like, it could have been from one
it
of the
didn't
rovers
have
that's on
fleet
there.
learning.
But I mean, rovers that we have on Mars now are able to autonomous drive because otherwise
Oh, okay.
it's 18 minutes to talk to Mars and 18 minutes
Right.
back or something like that. Maybe it's 18 minutes round trip.
Yeah, that was something I was
Correct me.
curious about. Is like what the actual time it was to take
Yeah.
for transmissions to
Right.
get back and forth.
Because they showed
it
it
was
being like 5 seconds. But
yeah, it wasn't
of course, it's not actually.
perfect.
Right.
No, they
Sure.
cut ahead. They did that nice little thing they do in Hollywood where it's like the tail end of what they said now appears on the other place.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's 10
Yeah.
minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's kinda interesting.
they're constantly behind.
Right.
And so I mean that's sort of like communications from the ground to the thing is slow.
Right.
Another question for you.
Okay.
Before we do this whole thing in 2033, would we have sent up GPS satellites into orbit around
I was thinking that when it was
Mars
going
so
on.
that we would, because if we had GPS satellites, then we could have autonomous driving on Mars.
and we could communicate easier. I mean, it's
True.
Maybe,
It-
might help.
Or maybe even a satellite in between. I don't
But
know.
you don't
that
even
part.
really need GPS to do basic like telemetry kind of.
No, so we don't need GPS satellites.
You don't need it. I mean,
Okay.
we have satellites, and they were showing that there was a satellite up that's taking pictures of them. It for some reason it was always at the same angle, which is unrealistic unless it's in geostationary orbit.
Well, yeah, they
but
might-
it would have to be on the equator of the planet.
So it wasn't a drone.
no.
Okay.
So I mean, what
Unless
you
it was a
would
Martian drone.
what you would have
Yeah.
usually been seeing would have been a tilting, like how it's over the course of a few minutes.
Right.
You would have seen like.
The
It would have looked
rover.
much cooler if it was tilting, because basically the satellite's flying by
Oh, yeah.
overhead.
And you'd only
So
get it for
that's-
little
Right.
windows.
Right.
Which
depending
is
on
what
how
we
many
saw in The
satellites.
Martian. The movie The Martian, we
Yeah.
get windows of opportunity, which
It's
is more realistic.
very.
Yeah.
The Martian, I think, was very, very realistic.
Right. Do you take Martian weather into account as Daedalus is approaching Mars? What if there's a big storm near the landing site? Would you just go into some kind of orbit around Mars and wait for the storm? Or do you just land regardless of the storm?
So it depends on how you want to get there. So orbital mechanics is a super complicated subject, but there's basically a few ways that they could do a landing on Mars. So basically,
would they go into orbit, do you think, around Mars?
my thought would be the smartest thing I would think would be to go into orbit around Mars, because otherwise, so basically you'd orient yourself. So you slingshot around the moon, or whatever the hell you have to do to get over to Mars. So then you're headed towards Mars, and then you're coming up to Mars, and you have to slow yourself down. So either one thing that you can do would be to try air braking around Mars. It doesn't have the best atmosphere for it. You'd have to get very, very close to the surface of the planet and basically just kiss it, and that would slow you down without having to use too much rocket fuel, which would be kind of nice.
And that would slow you down enough to get into its orbit?
It would slow you down enough to then adjust into orbit. It would save you.
I vote
some
for
kind
that
of
because
efficiency.
I don't want to land. Well, I'm probably going to be too old, but I don't want you guys landing when there's a storm.
Right. I
Yeah,
think
you
that.
watched The Martian. That didn't go too well for
So
him.
I'm worried about Martian storms.
And I
Worked
think
on
that
that, didn't
they
it?
Yes.
they just sort of skimmed right over that, and they went basically from them.
Right, we don't know,
no
like-
frame
right.
of reference. They've just
Right.
been like flying at Mars or something, and then all of a sudden they're going into a landing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen where you'd have to reorient before. I mean,
Yeah.
unless here's what they do: they're flying at Mars and they want to just land,
Yeah.
which
Use a lot of
seems-
fuel, but
It uses it would use a lot of
So-
fuel, but I mean it would use less fuel than getting into orbit.
so is the idea that these
Somewhat.
guys land? They were supposed to land at the proper base. There's all this equipment waiting for them. They would start producing fuel, and then they would fly back a few years later. Is that the idea, or more people would be coming in the meantime?
I'm not.
It sounded
sure.
like a one-way mission. I know, like, we don't want to have a one-way mission when we actually go to Mars, but the way they were talking, it almost felt like
Just 'cause
we're
it-
gonna die either on the way or we're gonna die there. That's kind of how it sounded.
It isn't supposed to be a one-way mission.
That's what.
That's why they didn't like parachute down.
Right.
They brought a whole rocket ship with them, which is very hard to do.
I just love that before Elon figured out how to land a rocket, no one even thought this was a possibility. They thought, well, you're going to have to, crash land and rebuild a new rocket, or
Right.
But now we're all thinking, oh yeah, I guess you could land a rocket and then reuse it.
Well, someone made a good point about the ships. Like we probably never would have gotten to America.
I think it was Elon.
Was
said
it
that
Was it
in-
Elon?
in
Yeah,
the show,
and it's
yeah.
like you think about it, and it's like so true.
It's kind of like a Nadoi, yeah, of course.
Right.
Why wouldn't you be able to go back and forth with
But,
mode
you
of
think back,
transportation?
But like the Kon-Tiki in the early ships,
Yeah.
there was no reusing that ship.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is amazing that we just have it in our head. Of course, reuse a ship.
Which makes you think that maybe in 100 years we'll be like, yeah,
Of course, reuse.
like
Right.
look back and
100
say,
years, I'm looking out of my Martian
yeah,
apartment.
right. Wait,
Um,
they couldn't reuse ships.
So that's the question. I don't think I'm going to Mars. I think even if I want to, if we're talking 17 years, 20 years from now, I'm going to be too old. They're probably not going to let me go up on one of the first missions. But how about you guys? You think if
I'm going to Mars. I've decided that I'm going to Mars when I'm in my 50s.
Okay.
I've decided. So by then,
So not the first round.
no. I mean, it won't be that much on Mars, but I'm going.
And what if it's not sure yet whether you can get back?
Still going.
Really?
Yeah. No, I think hopefully I'll live a very fun, successful, happy life. See a lot of the world.
The Earth world.
This
the Earth
world.
world.
Yes.
But and so it's to me, I feel like I don't know, like especially with climate change and the Earth slowly not doing so great, and it doesn't seem like we're doing enough really to fix it. I would rather be on a new world than a dying world. Like I don't know. For me, it's been very sad to hear like that the coral reefs have been dying out, like and seeing them, like seeing these completely dead, like skeleton scapes underneath the ocean that used to be colorful and everything, and now it's just bleached white. And knowing that species are going to go extinct, and knowing that places that I've been to, whether it's Boston or Venice, are going to be underwater. I don't know. I don't want to be there for that.
How about you guys? Either you want to go to Mars?
Yeah. I'm going to say a hard no.
Let's say you can come back.
It
say
depends on
it's
how
a-
long it takes to get there.
It's going to take about. I mean, Elon said the minimum will be 3 months.
That's not too bad.
I want to stress though that it would be fun. Because you're going to be, first of all, you're in 0G. You're in this spaceship with a bunch of really cool people, probably, because they are all going to Mars. They're saying that there's going to be, like, you'd have lectures and like, cool space games you can play. I mean,
Well, I think,
games.
like, personally, like, it
Space
feels like, to
Olympics.
me, like,
Yeah.
it depends on how normal it is at the time. Because right now, like, it's so far-fetched, but if it's, like, a cruise by the time we're, like, 60, 70 years old, imagine if it feels like that. Like, I might do that.
I don't think it's going to be quite at the level of cruise.
I mean, think about it. 3 months there, you go see something. 3 months back, like there's gonna be. It's gonna be
a
very
lot more
different.
expensive. I mean, I don't want you to think that it's going to be like what a cruise is.
Oh, of course.
It's going to
not
be
Less
gonna
more like
alcohol.
a,
Way less alcohol. Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying
Will be
to.
bands playing on the ship or anything?
I'm trying to think of
Although
what
they're
it would
going to
be.
need musicians on Mars.
Probably will.
That's true. They're going to need. Well,
Miners.
I'm interested to see this
Yeah.
the society and like the social aspects of what happens when people start living on Mars, like the
Right.
sports that come out of it, the like
The laws.
broadcasting. Like
Right.
we might be watching Martian sitcoms, like
it's true.
and once babies start getting born on the planet, that there are going to be Martian people.
And
Right.
that brings up a lot of like lawyerish topics that I don't want to get into too deep. But I mean,
Yeah.
like,
We'll
We'll
definitely
have
get
it
into
for
this in
another
future
episode.
episodes. So
Yeah, I don't know
the
if
question I had is, he said it was going to be 70 degrees before nightfall when they were landed on the planet.
70 below. Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
outfits, are they thermally heated with a nuclear fusion
That-
reactor?
I couldn't tell if those outfits were designed
Or-
to look cool or if they were
Or
designed
they're
to be
really-
scientific.
yeah,
those
only
are
the
really-
day outfit, like
those
day
are,
apparel.
Those are designed for TV. I think.
Yeah.
But so how did Matt Damon do it when he was on the planet? He was in a very cool outfit, and wasn't he out at all
I think
hours?
his looked more realistic.
I think his was slightly more realistic, but I mean, I think that you really have to design for TV where you really are showing the person's
they were showing
face,
the
face. True, yeah.
so that way you can understand their emotions and stuff like that. When you're really on the planet, I think we're all going to pretty basically just look like a bunch of spacemen.
Yeah, reflective, like you can't see the face
Right.
to block out.
It'd be bright and
the sun.
yeah, and stuff
Now,
like that.
I really loved how it cut back and forth between actual science and SpaceX and
Yeah.
so forth, and going
Yep.
to the planet. I loved showing the first SpaceX rocket crashing on the drone ship.
That was one of the most powerful scenes.
Yeah, that got to me a little
I think
bit.
that one moved
Seeing
me.
everyone's reactions after the rocket
Right.
exploded.
Yeah,
'cause
you
they
know?
The woman crying.
I remember
Yeah.
watching that, and I remember basically they don't show. They were pretty confident that it might crash, and so
Yeah,
they didn't show
they
it.
said very high
But like
chance
live,
of crash.
there was no live footage of it,
Right.
And so it was only afterward that you really got to see it. I
It
guess
was
if you were
powerful.
in the control room,
Right. What I loved about that is to the rest of the world it was, he said he could land on a drone ship and he didn't.
Right.
And it was, but to the people within SpaceX, they all said, yeah, we're probably not going to land it properly the first time,
That's
or the
true.
second, or the third. We're going to get a lot of good data.
Right.
And I just love that it showed a crash on the drone ship and then an explosion. And it's showing that, like, to do this is hard. This
Right.
is, and yet, as they said with Elon, he's got one of the best records in rocket launching.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you see some of the early rockets in
Right.
in the world, like in the '60s, I mean, they were just they blow up on the launch pad. They blow. I mean, they just sort of. I mean, it was crazy.
But I mean, for those of you who don't know, now SpaceX can land the rocket back on the drone ship. It's amazing.
That's
footage.
unbelievable. I mean,
And it only took a few tries.
right.
But what I wonder is, can it be repeated like consistently?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
So once they
think
get it
will.
once, it's I mean, with the exception of a freak accident.
No, I think every single time they get more data, and you know,
Definitely.
the fact that he's
Cool.
not even landing on a solid ground, he's
It's
landing
just
on
a
a
small-
moving.
It's in
drone
the
ship.
ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would be worried about landing my Phantom 3 drone on a ship in
Right.
the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, what he's doing is strapping a rocket to the end of a fast-moving bullet, shooting it from outer space, and hitting a postage stamp,
I know.
Yeah.
and having it not go through the postage stamp but land on it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the kind of
and then send it back
thing
up.
that it's doing. It not only it not only has to hit the postage, it has to slow down and kiss it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's unbelievable. When they have
It
that
is.
panned out and you see this thing that's just coming down from space,
Yeah.
and then it slows down and lands.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, rocket science truly is like, especially space exploration. It truly is like the definition of like, if you don't succeed, try again.
Right.
And you're gonna have to do that over and over and over
Right.
and over again because it's space. I mean, it's this huge thing that we can't even comprehend.
Right. So I mean, the thing is that when we went to the moon, we only were spending about like 1% or something of the national
GDP.
GDP to do that. And I mean, if the whole world was prioritizing getting a civilization on Mars, I think that there would be nothing that could possibly stop it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's amazing that he's showing that all the big engineering feats, he's already solving them one by one.
Right.
You know.
And it was interesting seeing a diverse range of people.
I loved that. I loved
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
multiracial, multi-gender crew. I mean, it was wonderful to see that they didn't go for an all-white guy crew.
Yeah,
Right.
all American. Even they had just people from around the
I
world.
know. All multi-countries. It was wonderful. What I also love about the show is that it's a family show. You can sit down and watch it with your grandparents, with your little kids. It's tying together history with education, with excitement, with motivation. I mean, so what a wonderful way to entertain your family every week instead of watching one of those dumb reality shows. This is actually a reality show that
Yeah,
you
like
can enjoy.
when I watched those shows when I was younger, like the ones about life after people and all these shows that seemed like to have really interesting topics, but they would have really small budgets and their CGI would be like 2 seconds long and they'd reuse the same little
Right.
shot
Yeah, yeah,
over and
Get
over and
tired of
over.
it, right.
And it was like really nice and refreshing to see something that actually showed a story where you kind of got all of what you wanted to see.
Yeah, it engages you in like the story aspect, which draws you in to then learn about all the science and just the whole idea of going to Mars.
Yeah.
The reality that this can and will happen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it was
that's
told
very
in the
exciting.
style of
Mhm.
like a documentary, like it had already happened.
Yeah,
which
very
I thought was
powerful.
very cool.
Yeah.
Makes you believe that it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will. So I hope you like this first episode of Talking Mars.
Yeah.
We are gonna give away a poster. Maybe Jessica can grab that one right there.
this one is my favorite.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I like that.
all right. So this is Elon Musk, and he says, "I'd like to die on Mars, just not on impact." This is a quote from Elon Musk. You can win this poster. Please put your favorite Elon Musk quote in the comments down below.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to not use this quote, but maybe think of something else.
And if we pick you,
how about even some, if you can misattribute a quote, you can make up your own quote.
Oh yeah.
Make up your own Elon Musk quote.
Yeah.
If you can't find one that really resonates.
if we like it enough,
That's right. You'll be getting a poster.
You'll be getting a poster in the mail.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Now you know.
bye guys.
My tricorder readings are low. We're running out of battery. What should we do? What? I think what Jesse's saying is we need your support on Patreon if we're ever gonna make it home. Yes, we gotta make it home to Daedalus. And if we're gonna do it, you gotta help us. So get over there on Patreon and help us. Oh, and subscribe too. Good idea.
朝から、あと6日は